Games are meant to entertain, to bring us joy and escape from reality. But what if you found a game that did the exact opposite? Tonight, I'll share the story of a lost game cartridge that seemed innocent until it started predicting the future. And not just any future, your future. So put on your headphones, dim the lights, and prepare yourself for the haunting tale of the Lost Game Cartridge. Our story begins with a young man named Jake, a lifelong fan of retro games. Jake was known to browse every flea market, thrift store, and garage sale he could find, searching for old game cartridges. One rainy Saturday, he stumbled upon an old flea market that seemed to have just about everything, including a dusty cardboard box filled with outdated gaming gear. As he sifted through the box, his hand brushed against a cartridge with no label. It was plain, with only a smudge of red on the top corner. Curious, he asked the vendor about it, but the man seemed uncomfortable, almost reluctant to speak. "Take it," he said in a gruff voice, waving Jake away as if he didn't want to be near the cartridge. The man practically shoved it into Jake's hands for free, muttering, "I don't need that thing here." Excited by the mystery, Jake hurried home, eager to see what game he had found. He dusted off his old console, popped in the cartridge, and waited as the screen flickered to life. The game booted up with a strange, pixelated title screen that simply said, "Start." There was no menu, no name, no credits, just a dark, blinking prompt. Jake pressed start, and the game began with an 8-bit character standing in the middle of a deserted road, surrounded by shadowy figures in the distance. As he played, he noticed something strange. The layout of the game's world looked familiar, too familiar. It was a rough, pixelated version of his neighborhood. The houses, the streets, even the mailbox at the end of his block. It was all there. He brushed it off as a coincidence and kept playing, guiding his character down the road. But then, the game's map led him to a house. His own house. The screen flashed with a message. "Are you ready to come inside?" He laughed nervously, wondering if it was some elaborate prank. But there was no one else there. No one knew he'd found this game. Despite his growing unease, he pressed forward, watching as his character entered a pixelated version of his home. The rooms were empty except for one, his bedroom. Inside the bedroom, Jake's character approached a small, pixelated object on the floor. As he drew closer, the object came into focus. It was a tiny, pixelated version of the same unlabeled cartridge he had in real life. The screen flickered, and a new message appeared. "Save your progress?" Without thinking, Jake pressed the button, and that's when things started to spiral out of control. The screen went black, and when it returned, the character was no longer in his bedroom. Instead, he was in a dark, empty space with a single line of text. "You cannot leave until you finish." At this point, Jake was starting to feel genuinely scared. He tried to reset the console, but it didn't work. The screen flickered back to life on its own, showing his character walking down an empty road. And then, something even stranger happened. The game began to mirror his real life. Over the next few days, the game started showing things that would later happen in real life. It was small things at first, his phone ringing, his friend stopping by unexpectedly, or his neighbor walking their dog. But as the days passed, the events shown in the game grew darker, more personal. One night, Jake played, watching as his character walked down a dark, eerie hallway that looked like the one leading to his basement. The screen flashed a message: "Go down the stairs." He shuddered, realizing that the game seemed to be telling him to go into his own basement. Despite his fear, he decided to follow the instructions, curious to see where this would lead. He paused the game, grabbed a flashlight, and went downstairs. The air was thick, cold, and as he reached the bottom of the steps, he noticed something he hadn't before: a faint red stain on the concrete floor, almost identical to the smudge on the cartridge. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. The game seemed to have taken on a life of its own, mirroring his every move, showing him things he hadn't noticed in his own home. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that somehow the game was watching him. Determined to uncover the mystery, he returned to the console the next day. As soon as he started it up, a new message flashed on the screen. "Welcome back, Jake." His blood ran cold. He had never entered his name into the game. The game continued, this time leading him back to the pixelated version of his bedroom, where a figure stood by his bed. The figure was an exact replica of himself, staring back at him with hollow eyes. A message appeared. "I'm here now. You don't need to play anymore." In a panic, he tried to turn off the console, but it wouldn't respond. The screen began flashing rapidly, and the last thing he saw was his own face, pixelated and distorted, grinning back at him from the screen. Then everything went black. Jake's console never worked again, and the mysterious cartridge disappeared from his home. He never found out who or what created that game, but he's convinced that something dark was lurking within it, waiting for the right player to come along. So the next time you find an old game cartridge without a label, think twice before plugging it in. After all, you never know what's waiting for you on the other side of the screen. This is the Tales Keeper, signing off.